Good evening, everyone. Maneco 64 here, home of alternative economics and contrary views. So can everyone hear me well? Just checking. Bring the microphone a little closer in the screen. So yeah, we've got quite a few people here already, 63. I'm a little earlier, a minute or two earlier. We've got Simon from New Zealand. Hi, Simon. Simon Bevan. Already stacking on the low. We got Music Lover Forever. Mark W. We've got Full of Hope. Hi, Full of Hope. Quit Addiction. Yeah, Mike GB. I did see that there's a member of the MPC. I think her name is Silvana Tenreiro. She says that yeah, they're talking and considering negative interest rates, even though Andrew Bailey, I think it was last week or the week before, he said they're not thinking about it. So I think they're bringing it out, the negative interest rates. The central bankers these days, they can change their mind very quickly. Great. Thank you for the feedback, everyone. Hi, Ben Gray, Simon Bevan again. Hi, Simon. Chinzilla, Dan Breeze, Gur Olgi. Don't use Bluetooth direct into your ears, says Gur Olgi. Okay. Aaron Razi from Iowa. Phoenix FB from Colchester. Sumari from Florida. All right. Thank you, everyone, for showing up again for the live stream. I had to go upstairs to pick Billy up. He had gone up to the bedroom already. It's getting darker earlier. So, yeah, it's weird. It changes quickly at this time of the year. It's quite dark outside. It's not summer anymore. So the title of the live stream is Wealth Preservation is More Important Than Ever. And by that, I mean, you know, that with all that's going on, and it's not only about wealth, it's about what you're doing. I said months ago, because I think this is, I could see it was something organized, a crisis. It was like the energy non-crisis that Lindsay Williams used to talk about, and I could see it continuing further, and it is. And I even told people, do you really want to travel abroad and go abroad and come back and be told to quarantine? And I've listened to, and I've heard stories of many people I know who've gone abroad and they've come back and they've had to stay at home for 2 weeks. So it's not just about the wealth, it's about life at the moment. And yeah, it's not great, but I think the powers that be are chewing too much. And eventually, I think they're not going to succeed. I hope. I think we need to stay calm and batten down the hatches, so to speak, in terms of the wealth preservation. What I mean, and this is just what I think, each individual, of course, has different risk criteria. Some people are really young, some people are older, some people are, not that much younger, and they have different circumstances, so they can act differently. But I think it's very dangerous right now to try to commit to new investments or new businesses and things like that. I'm not telling people what to do, but I think with what is happening to the financial and monetary system, I see a lot of instability, especially with all the money printing, not only from the central banks, but we're seeing it seep through into the money supply. I made a video this morning about how money supply is going through the roof. M1 has grown by 72% annualized in the last 6 months, M2 about 40%, and also M3. And I think that's very disruptive. It's making the dollar and all the other currencies look a lot more like the Turkish lira or the Brazilian real, more like third world country currencies. And I think it's really dangerous. Mr. Guppy tried to get a worldwide assessment of the value of gold in total. Best I could find is 3 to 10 trillion. Do you have any better number? Well, the World Gold Council, their number is that there's 100, just under 200,000 metric tons. Uh, ever mind. A lot of it, of course, is not going to come out into the market. A lot of it is like religious artifacts, relics. A lot of it is probably being lost as well or misplaced. So I would say there's probably, central banks and countries hold about, I think, 30,000 tons of the stuff. A lot of it is held in jewelry. So yeah, it's about 6.7 billion ounces, the whole gold in the world. But for example, the mining sector is about 3 times smaller than the market cap of Apple. That just goes to show how undervalued that sector is. Pat is here. Pat says here in Indiana, no masks after the 17th of October. Well, that's a step. I mean, it's a long time still. Pablo Pina's here. Here in the UK, yeah, I've tried to avoid wearing masks. I had to do it the other day when I went to the Apple store. And to be honest, it was very uncomfortable. I was in there for a long time. It started fogging up my glasses. I couldn't breathe very well. It's not a good thing. I'm surprised, a lot of people take it so easily, and people wear it driving in their cars. They wear it walking outside. I think it's crazy to do that. Becca Harris says the internet is full of people saying stack silver now. Yeah, there are people that I think it's always a good time to save in real money, in sound money, silver and gold. I don't look at it as a trade unless I'm going to trade stocks or futures and options, which I don't do anymore. And yeah, but the mainstream, if you look at the mainstream, for example, I read an article in the FT yesterday about how investors right now are starting to probably look at alternatives. And I thought they were going to talk about commodities and precious metals, but they didn't even mention that. So I think, yeah, maybe there are pockets out there that are looking into gold and silver like us, but the mainstream, it's not even on their radar, I would say. The general public is still not really involved in the precious metals. Yeah, Graham has only worn a mask twice. Me too. Twice. Once was when I went to a golf shop a few months ago. They wouldn't let me in if I didn't wear one. They had one. Reluctantly, I put it on. And the other day at the Apple store. Other than that, I haven't worn it. Bobby 8270, do you think Biden will debate Trump? Well, I don't know really. I mean, who knows? He doesn't really seem to be very compos mentis, Biden. It would be tough. They might have to bring in. He's like a Weekend at Bernie's, isn't he? He's like they're holding him. He's dead almost. Who knows? I'm not really following it that closely. One thing that is very interesting is this Supreme Court situation. I think it's given Trump a better chance of winning the election because we could have a similar outcome as we had in the 2000 election when the Supreme Court helped beat what's his name, the guy who invented the internet, Al Gore. So but it's going to be. I think there's going to be a lot of uncertainty in the markets. It's going to be there's a lot of instability. I think whoever wins, I think there will be trouble. I think not only for the markets but also for the dollar. I think people, the foreigners who hold a lot of dollars, they're going to see what's going on in the U.S. Inside the U.S. politically, socially, economically, and they're going to lose more and more faith and confidence in having dollars. And if Biden wins, I think the debt will increase even more, even though Trump has done a great job of increasing the debt and the deficit as well. So it won't make much difference who wins. I think we're going to continue to see a lot of instability, a lot of money printing as well. The Bradbury pound. Hi, Elizabeth Pierce. Yeah, I heard about the Bradbury pound. That was back in World War One. When World War One kicked off, there's a UK Treasury official called Bradbury, and he started issuing. He got the government at the time to start issuing Treasury notes to finance the war, and I think it did quite well for a year or two, but then they stopped it. I think the bankers weren't very happy because the bankers wanted to finance the war. So if the Treasury issued their own notes, they weren't involved in the scheme, right? Yeah, that was the Bradbury pound. It was like the UK equivalent of greenbacks, which the Union issued during the Civil War, of course. I agree, Sam Deacon. Inflation, well, the effect of inflation, which is higher cost of living, which is basically higher prices, is going to be a consequence of all the inflation that we're seeing this year. They're creating it right now. It will probably take effect towards the end of this year, beginning of next year, I would say. And by next summer, I think we should see the consequence of all the inflation in things being a lot more expensive, especially things that we need, especially the bottom 90%, bottom 50, all the essentials. Of course, they can say, oh, inflation's low because you can buy all these cheap Chinese goods, electronic goods. But what's the flip side of that? The flip side of that is that we've seen all this hollowing out of the middle class in the US, in Europe, because, yeah, they're getting the cheaper prices, but they're hollowing out the industries, the businesses in the US, in Canada, in the UK, and it's all being shipped abroad, all the jobs. People have been able to keep up with it because they've been borrowing to buy things because their jobs don't pay as much. But now it's coming to an end. That's the way I see it. Any good broker in the UK for mining stocks? Kapurvani, 1612. Yeah, I tried HL. I use IG.com, but to be honest, they don't have access to too many of the junior miners, like in the Toronto Venture Exchange. I have contacted them to see if they can add them or list them. So yeah, HL and IG are the ones I know. You'd have to do some more homework. Mr. Guppy says, as you know, I didn't know Mr. Guppy. I can't read your mind, but he was short gold and silver at the peak. I'm no longer short. I think it's possible that people will buy up all the gold on Earth. There certainly seems to be enough fiat for this. Yeah, Mr. Guppy, that's good that you shorted the gold. I don't. I've never shorted gold. Maybe what you mean is you sold your gold or you use futures. But yeah, I do look at the markets and the technicals. But I just look at it just to see what's going on, maybe to get a good opportunity to add on. I bought not a lot, but I bought some silver in March, that day that silver dumped. I was fortunate enough to find some physical silver. Yeah, I read an article on King World News, and it's by Alistair Campbell, not Alistair Campbell, Alistair McLeod, and he talks about the fact that the hedge fund, not the hedge funds, but big money, family offices, wealthy individuals on COMEX are long now, just like they were in March after gold dipped. He thinks the bullion banks, the commercials, are having a tough time covering. They haven't really covered as much as they needed to, and that we could go straight back up. So you could be right. Maneco, talk about protecting your private wealth in an express private trust. I don't know much about trusts, but it is a good way. There are some people who keep their wealth in trust. You have to have of course, someone who is a trustee. Then you have the beneficiaries. It locks in the assets, and it's tax efficient. I'm not a tax advisor, but there's people in the UK who keep their property in trust, and then when they die, it goes on. The beneficiaries pass on to their go to whoever they want. It could be children or anyone else, and they don't pay any inheritance tax on it. So that is a good way as well. But I'm not a specialist on that. I think as well, when I talk about protecting your wealth, and I know someone commented before I started that money isn't wealth, and I agree. Money stores wealth. Money helps you exchange wealth, but it also preserves value. So I think anyone who's holding a lot of paper, and by paper I mean bonds, government bonds, corporate bonds, even in the stock market, and even holding cash in a bank, I personally would try not to have so much of that right now. I think the system is very uncertain, and that's why I think it's a good time to have some physical gold and silver. You don't have to have that much. You can still keep some of your paper assets if you want, in my opinion. But if you, let's say, protect them with 5 to 10% of what you have, if the rest of your assets go down in value by 50% and gold and silver go up by 400%, you protect your wealth. The other thing I think is important right now is not to commit too much to taking on debt, especially for real estate, to buy a house. I think it's very uncertain right now. The situation. I know sectors of the UK housing market are still doing very well because they've stripped the stamp duty for properties up to 500,000, but that's going to expire in March. So there you go. How do you think the BOE will sell negative rates to the public? Well, from what I've read, I haven't read the whole thing. They're going to use the excuse that of the crisis, right? The health crisis, that the economy, there's a lot of unemployment, and we're going to need to encourage lending, because that's the excuse they're going to use. The woman from the MPC, she already said that in the EU or Eurozone, where they have the euro, that's led to more credit creation because banks don't want to keep their reserves with the central bank because they're losing money, so they'll try to lend it to the public. Of course, the public will borrow at a higher rate, so that's the excuse they're going to give, even though we know it doesn't work, and it's crazy. And that's another reason why I think people need to be in precious metals. They've had it in Japan for years. People say Japan is in a deflation, but if you look at the Japanese yen, in terms of gold, it's dropped a lot as well. It's been the worst performing currencies out there versus gold. Yeah, that's right, MM. No, extend more credit. Shane Sturgis says November, December will be very hard months in Britain when the furlough scheme ends. It will be a tough time to. It will be a good time to buy more gold. Yeah, you're right. And they're coming up with a new scheme, but I don't think it's going to help as much. It's going to be very reduced. Uh, I think there will be a lot of unemployment. It won't be a great Christmas. I think in the US as well, a lot of the programs are ending. I see that Congress can't seem to get its act together on more stimulus, and eventually there will come probably more stimulus. There will be more QE. I think foreigners, uh, foreign holders of treasuries, especially China, they're reducing their holdings. Other countries as well. I think the Fed's going to have to step up and do more QE to buy more treasuries as well. Bob Hollyoak thinks we're going to have a full lockdown by the end of October in the UK. It's possible. Dinas Thompson, how low will gold and silver go? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, the paper price could go lower, but I did a video yesterday about what the real price of silver is here in the UK. If you sell a coin on eBay, you're still getting like almost 30% more than the spot price. So that's the thing. Gold and silver could go lower, the paper price, but you might not be able to get any, especially if there's another lockdown. And I think it could come to the US as well. I'm not sure. Who knows? Yeah, Daniel says, I think the furlough scheme and all these schemes is just to keep people from getting really angry, which there already are, I think, a lot of people, and so that they can do this engineered collapse of the economy. I saw an article yesterday. It was an old one from March 23rd from the IMF, and they were talking already that, and this was March 23rd. I know the lockdown started around then, but they're already saying, oh, this is good, the great lockdown of 2020. Things are going to go down the pan. And they've been planning this. So I think, yeah, like you said, the furlough is just to keep people from rebelling. But eventually, people are going to lose their jobs. And this hasn't been translated into the unemployment statistics in the UK. It's still very low. It's going to go a lot higher. Yeah, things are, and I guess maybe the next step is like a digital pound universal basic income as well, like they're talking about in the US, digital dollar and things like that. Pat says interactive brokers are changing their margin requirements in October. Each day margin requirements will be raised in October. This will drive stock markets lower. Yeah, well, it could. That's usually what the COMEX does to gold and silver when they're trading up a lot. They raise the margin requirements. Rocky Champ, there's the dollar bull. Well, dollar is just like any other currency. It's a piece of paper, and it's fiat. They're all filth, in my opinion. Fiat filth. They're not really backed by anything. Right now, the dollar has rebounded a little bit against other currencies, but they take turns, right? What do you mean by wealth preservation? Asks Ben. Well, I just think that in the situation that the world is in right now, yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty. I think it's you need to be really selective what to do with your savings. Yes, I'm not trying to tell people that there aren't opportunities out there, and people, yeah, and I mean, I'm not, there probably is. But I think we need to be careful unless you know really well what you're doing. By wealth preservation, I mean as well if you have a lot of paper like cash or investments in treasuries and paper assets, bonds, and stocks. I think we're going to have a very rocky next few months. And I think, yeah, being conservative is a way to go. What I mean by wealth preservation is I don't think it's a good time to grow wealth right now, but it's also a time where you could lose a lot of wealth. So that's why you need to be very careful. I think it was Dr. Schoon, Schoon. He's been writing about this for years. Dr. Schoon, you can Google that. He thinks we're going to have the time of the vultures, right? A time where bears and bulls are not going to do well. It's not a good time for anyone. So that's what I mean by that. You need to be careful, I think. You know, seeing what is going on in the world right now, politically, economically, monetarily, is very dangerous times, I think. Doesn't mean that you can't do well from it. I think the hard asset sector is going to benefit commodities, precious metals, and things like that. Yeah, Elizabeth Pierce. I saw that Wales is in the second lockdown. Yeah, I saw you can't leave Swansea or Cardiff. Ben, the 1% will get richer. That's right. I don't think, Ben, I would try to keep as little money as possible with the banks. To be honest, I only keep as much as I need to pay my bills monthly. Uh, I think that's my opinion. I think having a little bit of gold and silver will go a long way. Maybe paying off debt, some debt. If you have debt, pay off debt, get out of debt. Don't be dependent on debt. Invest in yourself or your family if they have their own businesses or they need to improve some skills. Or yeah, that's the way I look at it. Jack Owen, thoughts on trading gold or silver for real estate in the coming years? Jack, yeah, I think yeah, that is going to be. That's why you save money, right? That's what gold and silver are, and there will be a great time. I think it will be a buyer's market, especially with gold and silver. Right now, I think the real estate market is a little bit artificially. How can I say supported here in the UK? I think prices are still really high. Uh, Lee Smith, yeah, I remember you, Lee, about EOS. I'm not holding that much EOS at the moment. No, I'm not. I've got quite a bit of DTube, but DTube hasn't gone live yet. I've got Hive right now. That's the only crypto I've got. A little bit of Bitcoin. I'm a little bit disappointed with the progress of EOS. To be honest, it's taken a long time for it to really bloom. Maybe it will, but I haven't got that much anymore. EOS. Mr. Lee says it's mortgage debt. Okay. Well, it depends really. As long as you are confident that you can keep servicing that mortgage, as long as you're confident that you haven't borrowed too much, that even if the house prices go down a lot, that you could be able to cover the mortgage, that you don't go into negative equity. I guess it's always never a good time, I guess, to borrow to buy anything, right? But yeah, it's just common sense. I wouldn't be going out and trying to start a buy-to-let empire right now. Buying all these. I think we haven't seen the collapse yet of the economy or the real estate market. They're still trying to support it artificially. Lynn Gordon, yeah, with EOS, I think if you want, you need to stake some of it. I think there is a rule about if you hold it for 2 years and you don't stake it, you might lose some. I'm not sure, but you can stake EOS. That's right. Crypto Granny says she'd love to have me on her channel. Yeah, no problem. I'll have a look at your channel, Crypto Granny. Maybe I'll contact you. Elizabeth Pierce says, I'm in Lanelli. Is that how you pronounce it? It is the only town to be locked down. But I heard that you can only leave, I think, Swansea or Cardiff if you have a good reason. I'm not sure. But I think the Scots and the Welsh are being a lot more severe with their rules and regulations for this crisis. Mr. Guppy, market rigging of the metals. Yeah, no, the banks, eventually when gold and silver really go through the roof, the banks will be long. I agree with you. But they really don't want, all the volatility we see in the paper market, that discourages a lot of people, regular public from getting into precious metals. A lot of people, when you talk about precious metals, the first thing they say is that, oh, it's very risky, even though it's been the safest asset to have for the last few thousand years. It's the best store of value, monetary store of value, better than any other fiat currency, right? Gold and silver. Jim Diggs, thank you for the super chat. Do you think Stephen Van Meter and his thoughts? What do you think of Stephen Van Meter's thoughts? What is going on? I don't listen to Stephen Van Meter that much. I saw he made a video about inflation, and I don't think he knows what inflation is, to be honest. So he thinks inflation is actually the measure of prices, which in my book is wrong. I don't really listen to him. I know that he calls himself the bond king. But other than that, I don't listen to him. One of the guys I listen to, I like listening to Rethinking the Dollar, Mike. My wife likes listening to The Uneducated Economist. I've listened to him a few times. Who else? Greg Menorino, I listen to him once in a while. I haven't listened to him lately. But I try to, it's like my golf coach always told me, don't copy other people's swings. Just try to have your own swing. And that's what I try to do. I'm not going to be listening to the people that have channels like mine all the time, because I want to have my own ideas. So I try not to listen too much to other people who do the same kind of analysis that I do. I like Lynette Zhang, though. But yeah, so I don't really know much about this guy, Stephen Van Meter. But I do know that he professes to be the king of bonds. So there you go. $225.50 for 1 ounce Britannias. Yeah, that's a good price. If you're not paying VAT, that's a good price, because you won't get it for less than £30 from a dealer, from a bullion dealer in the UK. Inflation causes stocks to rise. Technologist live. Not necessarily. In the 70s, you had stagflation. and the stock market went sideways, didn't really go anywhere. If anything, it was like a really bad time for stocks. So it doesn't necessarily follow. And if you look at the Dow and S&P, they topped in 2018 in terms of gold. If you look at the Dow gold ratio, especially. Royal Mint right now, including VAT. Is that real physical Britannia? Are they delivering it to you, or are they storing it for you? Make sure that they send it to you. That's a very good price from the Royal Mint. Thank you, Gary Nigel Draper. Says you're doing a great job. I follow many to get a balanced view. Yeah, I mean, um, that's right. Right now, I've been watching a lot of. I don't know if you guys know about Library, RBRY, and someone uploaded loads of the Gold Rush programs. So I've been watching a lot of that, and I enjoy watching it. And one thing it shows me as well is that how hard it is and how expensive it is to get gold out of the ground. And one thing that is also really interesting about the mining sector is that when you watch these gold rush programs, fuel is always a huge part of the costs of digging the gold out, running the machinery. And right now, fuel is, oil price is still relatively cheap. So I think that's really bullish for all the mining sector because it keeps their costs of mining very low. So that's what I've been watching a little bit. I do have a few YouTube channels that I enjoy watching, like golf channels. But yeah, sometimes, yeah, it's nice to get a few more light-hearted subjects. But the other guy I really enjoy listening to is Richie. Richie from Boston. He's one of my favorites. Michael Warhaft, Sprott, Schiff, or Swiss banks, which is better as physical holders? I think, I don't like ETFs, but I think the Sprott silver ETF is safe. I don't know if he has a gold ETF. I don't trust any of the banks, even Swiss banks. No, don't trust the Swiss banks. So I would trust Sprott and Schiff, uh, but I wouldn't touch any of the banks, even Swiss banks. Mr. Guppy says Bond King thinks rates are going to zero. Well, it's not hard to assume that because we're already at point one. The Fed funds, so it's not a stretch that they could go to zero. It's not a stretch either that maybe treasuries, 10-year treasuries could go to zero. But I think a lot of the demand for treasury comes from foreigners, and I think they're getting more and more worried about all the deficit spending that has been done in the U.S. So I think it's really tricky. The bond bull market has been going on since the early '80s. That's almost, I think the 10-year yield topped at 16% in 1981, and it's been going down since then. I mean, there comes a time where that has to switch, and if the Fed continues to create reserves to buy those bonds just to keep the yields low, I think people are going to run away from the dollar. So yeah, you could have bond prices go up a lot, especially in the longer end because of convexity, the 10-year. But you're not going to get any income, and I think the value of the underlying currency is going down. So I don't think it's a good proposition to own bonds. I think Warren Buffett said that it's really stupid to buy bonds right now because you're getting no return you're getting zero, and then you account for the rising cost of living, you're getting a negative return already, real return. Music lover Vernon Coleman is on brand new tube. Yeah, I saw that. What happens if stockbrokers go bust? They are very closely tied to the banks. That's where they keep your money, with the banks. They're not banks, stockbrokers. So if you put 100,000 with a stockbroker, 100,000 pounds or dollars, they're gonna put that with their bank, be it J.P. Morgan or Bank of America or Barclays. Yeah. So yeah, stockbrokers are definitely counterparty risk. That's why I was talking about, the time of the vulture, right? Where bulls and bears might lose out, because you could be doing really well, shorting the stock market, and then the stock market crashes, but then your broker goes bust, and you lose everything, right? That's what I mean by the time of the vulture. You need to, if you're going to play the system, you got to make sure you play with an amount of capital, I think, that you're prepared to lose completely, even if you're right. So that's what I mean. Thank you for the question. Helsinki, thank you for the super chat, 5 Aussie dollars. So maybe you are a Finnish person living in Australia. I don't know. That's my guess. Frank David, if the Fed can print the money it needs, could it not pay off the national debt? Well, because the Federal Reserve, it's the U.S. Treasury that holds the national debt. That owes the national debt is the U.S. Treasury. The Federal Reserve, they buy national debt. They've got I think quite a bit, over 3 trillion. I'm not sure exactly, of U.S. Treasuries. They could just write it off. That would mean that would shrink the money supply, and it would drive the economy into a Great Depression. That's the problem with the fiat currency system. The bigger it grows, the more debt it needs. And we are at a point where they have to keep rates at zero, manipulate them, or else they can't keep it going. But that's the problem that people don't realize. By paying off the national debt, you would, how can I say, destroy the money supply, destroy the economy. But you couldn't get to such a juncture where the debt was so huge under a sound money system with gold as an anchor. The thing is that we've been under this system for 50 years almost now, and it's gotten out of hand. So there you go. I hope that helps. Graham Hobbs says, best question of the night about stockbroker. That's why I'm waiting until spring 2021. All right. Yeah, I do have mining shares, but it is a fairly significant amount. But let's say my broker went bust. It wouldn't be nice, but it wouldn't destroy my financial situation. So, but maybe I should have less. I don't know. Who knows? DMC during 08, 09, the miners went very cheap levels. Do you think the same could happen during this financial crisis? I think they already did that, DMC, back in March. So yeah, and they, in 08, 09, they had done really well, and they haven't really done that well so far. So I think there's more room for the miners. Helsinki, what are your thoughts on GDXJ? Some point to possible bull run along. Yeah, I think the miners, they're not mining companies are not real gold and silver. You have to account for a lot of other things like management, location, politics. But I think it's a good speculation to have if you're into that. It will outperform the price of gold a lot more because the miners' costs are fairly fixed. So if they're covering their costs and gold goes up by $100 and their revenues are $100, they're going to double their revenues uh, while the price of gold is going up maybe 5%, right? So they give you leverage. Uh, Not joking, do you see more civil disruption in the UK like we saw in America? I do actually, maybe because I saw yesterday there was a peaceful demonstration in London, and very peaceful. They even praised the police. They said that they had gotten permission from Westminster Council, and then later on the police came and like really barged on the protesters. So I think people are getting a bit fed up. But I don't think the UK is as divided and as the US, even though under the surface it might be. There's still the Brexit, uh, the Brexit divide, and now I think there's a bit of a divide as well in relationship to this health crisis. I think that's building up as well, but it could come later. It could come after the US. I think the US is more at a boiling point than the UK. Thoughts on oil? Uh, yeah, Padenda. I think oil is held up really well recently, despite the correction in the stock market. So, in the last 2 years or so, every time the stock market was going down, there was a lot of pressure on oil prices. So it could be a sign that we're, ready to take off in the oil price, even though the economies are doing really badly. So it could be maybe the trigger that general commodities need to go even higher. Dr. Heiko Schoening covering the corona banking hoax. Yeah, I saw that, what he said, and he was arrested, right, Lucas? I completely agree with what that doctor said about what's going on, and he was arrested for saying that. Carl Vernon, I do follow Carl Vernon, actually, Becca. I think he's really good. Yeah. He's making a lot of videos these days, short ones, but funny ones. Young Austrians, intrinsic value. Does money have to have intrinsic value? Yeah, I mean, money does. If people value it, yeah, that's intrinsic value. Um, People value things like gold and silver. And it's difficult to tell why, but it also has other values like for jewelry, for industry. But fiat money doesn't, the only value it has is that it's forced upon us by law. So there you go. Flip Van Saxon, thank you for your super chat. Flip. GM, why do we pay tax if the central banks can keep creating reserves or money out of thin air? Well, because if you look at less developed countries or countries like in Italy, where the tax gathering authorities are not very efficient, usually that leads to a complete collapse of the currency, because what gives the currency a little bit of value is that people have to work to earn it, to pay tax. So if you stop taxing people, they're going to realize that it's worthless. So that's the big dirty secret. Uh, they got to print it, but they got to make it. It's backed by our work a little bit. Anna Breeze, yeah, she's. I've listened to her. John Anderson, do you think gold has been falling because it's coming to the end of the quarter and people have to sell to cover positions? I'm not sure. If it's because of the end of the quarter. I think a lot of it has been, to do with the strength of the dollar a little bit. Even though I've said many times that in the short term, the gold and dollar can have a relationship. But if you look at 2008, the dollar bottomed at 70.69, the dollar index, and now I don't know, we're around 94. We've been to 103, and gold is at the time was at 1,030, and now we're almost at 1,900. So in the long term, gold will continue to outperform versus the dollar and all other fiat currencies. John Anderson, do you think gold has been falling? Oh, okay. I already answered that question. I don't know why you keep asking that, John. I just answered your question, but anyway. Butchie Harding, when are these prices going to shoot up like 2011? Which prices are that, Butchie? I mean, if it's gold and silver, I think they're already starting to shoot up. I mean, gold started the year around 1,500. We got up already to 2,000. Yes, we've come back a little bit. Silver started the year at 18, went down to 11, and now we're like 23, 24. So yeah, things don't go up in a straight line, nor go down in a straight line. But sometimes they can go up very quickly. But unless you position for it, you're never gonna, benefit from it. Jim Diggs, yeah, 9 minutes, 8 minutes now, Jim. We're approaching an hour. I have to get up a little earlier tomorrow as well. I'm gonna do my video quite early because I'm gonna play golf tomorrow morning. So there you go. Do the Rothschilds own the Federal Reserve? I think the Federal Reserve, the regional Federal Reserve banks, the major shareholders are the banks in those districts. I think the New York Fed is the most important one, of course. They have most of the assets of the Federal Reserve, and they're owned by JP Morgan, Citigroup, all the major New York banks. You'd have to look into who really owns those banks. And yeah, maybe I think the Rothschilds are probably heavily big holders of the major banks of the world. So indirectly, yeah, they are in control of the central banks, not only the Federal Reserve. Gold going to 2,500 to 3,000 by the end of the year. Difficult to say, but it will go to those levels in the next few years. But it is possible, when people talk about the bull market in the 70s of gold, and I think it went from $35, 1968. It went to 200, I think, in 1974 or 5, and then it corrected down to 100, and then right around November 1979, it was trading around 400. And then by January 1980, it was at almost 900. So yeah, anything's possible. Going from just under 2,000 to 2,500 is not a big percentage move. It's like 20, 25%. Look at 1979. It went from 400 to almost 900 in a matter of weeks. So it's very possible. Baba Joe, exchange precious metals for land in this climate. It depends what kind of land. If it was like a gold claim in the Yukon or in Alaska or Yukon, or yeah, I would exchange some land for some land. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would. But as I said, I think it's better to wait out a little bit right now because things are still uncertain. But land is always a good thing to have. Of course, it depends also. You need to check, depends on the jurisdiction, all the taxes and regulations, right? For land. Milkshake theory. I, I, yeah, I don't really think much about that theory. In the end of the day, the dollar and all fiat currencies are going to become, there's going to be nothing. There's going to be nothing left in those cups. So the only milkshake you'll be drinking will be the gold and silver milkshake. James Jacob, gold supply cannot be verified. Yeah, it's not perfectly exact, but it's roughly, people think it's the World Gold Council, and I don't really rate the World Gold Council that much. I don't like that institution, but they think there's around 198,000 metric tons. It could be far less, it could be more. So there you go. Not Joe King. Do you envisage platinum being used again in industry heavily like it was catalytic converters in the new technology, pushing the price above gold again? Um, to be honest, yeah, that is possible. But to be honest, I don't really follow platinum as much, so I wouldn't want to guess. But I guess Trump has got a new platinum plan. I don't know if that means he's going to send platinum to people. Any insights into what's going on in Argentina currency? Would it be wise to invest in any companies operating there? Uh, you know, I know the whole world is a basket case right now, but Argentina definitely is a basket case as well. I couldn't say, about investing in Argentina right now. The other thing I would say, unless you are in Argentina, but right now with all the travel restrictions, with all the, especially here in the UK, you go somewhere and you come back, you got to quarantine. I don't think it's the right time right now to be investing in other geographical areas. Let's say you are in the US and you want to invest in Argentina. But I think Argentina is a great country in terms of the resources, the people. It's just a really badly managed country. But yeah, I mean, land, agriculture is a great country for agriculture, Argentina. James Jacob says gold can never be money again. It already failed once. It has too many central points of failure. The banks of storage. Um, I think you've got it backwards, James. I don't think it was gold that failed. It was the bankers that bankrupted the system. They were not honest. They lied about how much gold they have. What does that mean? Well, they created too many promissory notes not backed by gold. Gold has been money for over 2,000 years, and it doesn't matter what you say or what economists say or what central bankers say. Gold is money, and that's it. And it's never failed because if you find a gold coin from Roman times, you dig it out of the ground, it will still buy you a lot. So I think you're wrong about that. You need to do your homework, James. Yeah, it's governments that fail. So I'll take a few more questions. We're right near the 1 hour mark. Uh, Bitcoin and its intrinsic value. Well, the people who you know are into, the people who how can I say, are backers of Bitcoin or whatever you want to call it, promoters of Bitcoin. They argue that the value is in the mining, right? You have to solve a mathematical problem. That's why it has value. We have to see. I mean, it's still too early. Bitcoin is only about 10 years old, maybe a little more. But they've definitely done a good thing with limiting the supply of Bitcoin. That's why it's gone up so much. So there you go. It's still early days. Do you think coronavirus is a hoax, Rocky Champ? Yes, I do. Uh, Lanco Bear, percentage of gold to silver. I think that's all really personal, right? It's all personal. It all depends on the individual. Right now, I would say if I was starting to stack, I try to get a little more silver because I think it's a lot very undervalued. All right. Uh, Thank you, everyone. Calling it a day right now. And thank you very much for showing up and for participating in the live stream. And I hope to talk to you soon. Take care. Take care, everyone. Bye.